we wanted to jump in. There's so much to kind of go over with you, Barry, but I'm really interested in, you've kind of said repeatedly, like, this is an important time for you to kind of take a step back and pause. And I don't know, I think you've used, assess is the word you've used. And yeah. I just wanted to talk through that process. Like, is it just like taking downtime, or like, what has this moment been like for you, this moment in time?
Well, I think, and I've been pretty transparent, I think, to most people in terms of, I've had, I'm 60. My parents are not 60; they're a lot older, and same with my wife's parents, and the kids are growing up and what have you. I've got kids that are 30 years old now, and when the opportunity was presented, and for lots of jobs, I guess I was interviewed for lots of jobs. I think I could have had a few if I desired, I guess. But at the same time, when you're coaching, and I've done it for, I go back to when I first started, it'd be almost close to, 40 years, 38 years, and almost 25 in the NHL with really not much of a break. Went from one job to the next pretty, started out the 16, 17 years in Nashville, and then, move over to Washington and then over to the island, and really haven't had a lot of breaks. And then what happens when in this business, you tend to put your family, you miss birthdays, you miss a number of things. And I felt really important, especially this summer with our family, anyways, on both sides, my family and my wife's, that I needed to help them out. I couldn't put it on, you need a great hockey wife, and I have one, and I just didn't feel that I could put all this on my wife and my family and my sister and whatever. So I just felt that it was time to give back to the family a little bit, if you will, and also take some time for myself. And I had a really hard summer. I mean, I did not take any time off. Usually you get about a month or 5 weeks, a place up in British Columbia. I was there for like 6 days this year. And, so I was working through the whole time, pretty well 7 days a week. And you need a lot of energy if you're going to coach in this game, because emotionally, physically, with travel, emotionally with expectations, the stress, all the stuff that comes with being a head coach in the National Hockey League. People think that you stand behind the bench for 3 hours a day, and that's what you do. That's what you do in minor hockey. It's something you do professionally, and you live it. So, a game day is, you're up at, 6:30, you're in the office at 7:30, and you're already at work. And then after the game, you've got 2 hours of work after the game. So it becomes an 18, 19-hour day. So you end up putting a lot of things on the back burner, things that you say, I'll get to it later. This summer, I decided it was time to get to it. So I got to it a little bit. So, but it's a blessing in disguise sometimes when you are let go from teams, that you're able to take that time and use it the way I have. So I've taken that time to get a lot of things that needed to be done family wise, and B, get yourself mentally refreshed if you want to get back into the business.
As you were having those discussions with teams in the summer, was there any moment when you were like, all right, this is not the route I want to take for next season? Like what tipped you over into deciding that, that it wasn't going to be a year off?
Yeah, I had right out of the gates, I had 4 teams in particular that basically within 48 hours of the news, I had teams wanting to meet, and what I did is I said I needed a little bit of time to assess really if I could pull this off, all the things I had to get done, and 2, if you have if you could get it done. Is it the right situation, and will you have the energy to get it done with a new organization? And the one thing that I stayed true to, I said to all 4 teams that I had talked to, that I was going to talk to all 4 teams. I just said I needed some time, and a couple teams came back and he said, hey, we need to know, or we're going to move on. And I said, no, move on, type of thing. So, that's sort of the process I went. And when I got towards I talked to all 4 teams. I had to make a decision and be fair to the teams that I was talking to, that I was not going to start the year coaching anyways.
Is there a possibility, and I've had conversations even just coming out of COVID where people, when you're in the grind and you're in the moment, you do it because it's all you know. And then when you stop, you're like, oh, hey, this isn't so bad either. Like I've had people that are like, I've had like, in our profession, writers and stuff, and people in hockey that are like, boy, just getting back at it has been a real challenge. Is there any scenario where you're like, hey, that's really hard coaching. I kind of like this.
Yeah, well, yeah, I think everybody, no one realized how hard coaching is.
Yeah,
in professional ranks. I mean, it's easy. I'm sitting back this year and I'm going, this is easy.
Right.
And I'm saying from my seat, you get a bigger picture, but you don't feel the second by second pressure or I have to read the Twitter and all that. I just watch, Bruce go through hell.
Oh, jeez.
And, I reached out to Bruce. I said, I don't have any interest in, your job or anything. This was, probably about 6 weeks ago. And I said, listen, I'm watching what's going on. And I said, I just, sometimes you need to talk to someone outside the game just to have another voice to vent on. And I said, here's my number. And, and then he really appreciated it. I just thought it was unfair to him.
Yeah.
The way it was done. It's unfortunate. And it's, you don't know I don't know the dynamics in that organization and how it was, came about, but anyways, it was tough to watch, and I think everybody recognized that. So I just wanted to reach out and to them, and it's when you're sitting on this side of the fence, it's easy to coach, it's easy to criticize, it's easy to do all that, and when you're there's some things that I know in the business, and I'm watching analysts and people in the media just tearing into someone, and I'm going, they don't even know.
They have no idea.
They have no idea. And you, as coaches, you want to be as transparent as you can, but sometimes you just got to take it and eat it, and, and protect your players. So that's part of the business. So it's sort of refreshing to sit back and watch. I've never been on this side and it's been my choice, which has been great.
Yeah,
if it wasn't my choice, then I might be saying it a little differently, but to this point, it has been my choice. So I'm taking the time, and I've done, really, I didn't get I'll just say my summer started. Yeah, most times you get your summer started, you get June, July, and, part of August, and then you're about August 10th, you're like, okay, I got to get rolling here and getting things. And I really wasn't to that point till almost Christmas time this year, just because I had so much on the plate. So I was able to get away at Christmas time, and I've got one more trip next week and going over to Europe and go from there.
Beautiful. So you mentioned reaching out to Bruce. How much of that was you feeling compelled to do it just because of, the connection that people drew with you and the Canucks over the summer? Like, how much of that was, okay, just so you know, like, I'm not involved here because that was, even at that point, there were people who were connecting dots that maybe weren't there.
Oh yeah. Every time that there's something in British Columbia, like I have a home there, and everybody sort of assumes that, but I just know that there was nothing to. I just felt as a coach, as an older coach in the league, you see other people in your business, and I know Bruce a little bit. We have the same representatives, but I don't know Bruce as well as a lot of people, but I do know Bruce through the business a little bit. And I just felt that it was the right thing to reach out because, when you get fired, no one wants to reach out to you a whole lot other than reporters and what went wrong and what do you have any bad, ill will, if you will.
Hey, we're here for you to dump on the team that just fired you. That's a very valuable role.
And so I just felt that it was the right thing, just as because you're in this business and as I'll say an older voice, just like like I'm good friends with Ken Hitchcock and we always do. He lives out in British Columbia in the summer, and we always meet and do these hockey 101 type things. What's the new trends, and he's always a good voice to reach out to and talk to because he doesn't have skin in the game, if you will.
Right.
And when Bruce was going through that, I just felt that it was something that Hitch would reach out when I was stressed out over the years and say, hey, you just need someone to talk to. I'm here, and they give him a call. And I felt it was something that was I needed to do just as a human.
Mm-hmm.
How without knowing what happened there in Vancouver, there was obviously, I don't think there's a disconnect between the manager and the coach and whatever that looks like. How did you? That happens, right? Like that happens sometimes where maybe it's not their guy or things just, there's a difference in philosophy. Through the years as a coach, how did you, part of it is managing your manager, right? What was your approach in doing that to make sure the communications, even if you weren't seeing eye to eye, was still there?
Yeah, well, I think, and everybody can speculate what happened with Bruce and Vancouver, all that. We don't know the dynamics. Right. I'm not gonna judge it. It was bad. Optically, as everybody has said, so I don't think I'm speaking out of turn. You try to manage that. I think I was very fortunate. I had David Boyle, when I first started in the National Hockey League, and we started out on an expansion team, so there was a lot of communication. I had a year before we started, but I always felt that letting your manager know what you're thinking, any conversations that you had with players, to have the communication not only go horizontally to your coaches, the other coaches, but also to your management. Vertically, you have to let your manager know. You had a conversation with a player. Maybe he's not playing well, and you talk to him, and you're trying to push him to the level that you feel he can get to, and you better communicate that to your manager, because the last thing you want your manager to get a call from the agent and say, hey, the coach and my player are not seeing eye to eye, and we want out. You don't want that. I think communication's the key to anything, and it's as simple as reaching out every day, even at the start of the day or at the end of the day, and having a coffee or at least a phone call with your manager, just so he knows how your day went, what you're thinking, and B, if there was anything that popped up. And then at the same time, it is a lot of times you say, you give the coach the team, but it really is the manager's team. You can put your stamp on in terms of style, but management puts the players in place, and you want to have the same vision. If the manager is trying to create an offensive juggernaut, if you will, or a wide open style of play type of team, and he's drafting and they're filling a roster with that, and then you put in a real strong defensive coach who doesn't want any
right.
Put it in deep every time. I mean, You need balance. There's teams out there that are really good, strong offensively, but you just need a balance. So you try to find that balance. And as a coach, I've always tried to coach the roster rather than, I'm probably known as a defensive coach because I've fixed a lot of those problems. My last couple teams that I've had, but I've coached, pretty offensive teams in Nashville and in Washington. Nashville, when we had guys like Korea and Arnott and Sullivan and if you think about Nashville, I was there a long time. The one thing that's very, very common in Nashville is active defense.
Mm-hmm.
Mm-hmm.
And I always felt, I tried to do it with the roster. We did the same thing in Washington. I had a total different problem in the island. Is they were bad defensively, so we had to reel it in quite a bit, and we knocked off 100 goals the first year. Which
they weren't bad defensively for all that long once you got there. For the record,
yeah,
it seemed like they got good pretty quick.
Yeah, you try to coach the roster, and also people tend to say, well, as coaches, the bottom line is the NHL is in a winning business. You're judged on wins and losses. You can talk about development all you want, but there's certain players maybe on your team that are younger players, high draft choices that you want to develop, but you're judged on wins and losses. Mm-hmm. And that's pretty well it.
Yeah. Right.
No matter what organizations say, hey, we're not developing or whatever, development's really in the minor leagues and winning's in the National League and it's hard to make the playoffs. I will say this, it is hard. People don't realize that how hard it is just to get in. And once you get in, how hard it is to win the whole thing. I was very fortunate to win it and have been there, but it takes a lot out of you. I'd say I know you had mentioned the bubble. It was interesting because when I went to the island, we went to the conference finals twice, and both in the restrictive, in the number one in the bubble, and the second year was when we had the new division alignment where we just played basically the 8 teams that you were in your conference. So it mentally, I know the bubble year and the next year, that was hard. That was hard mentally because you were restricted in so many levels. But that when you did get some freedom, you're like, I remember coming out of the bubble, true story. We lost out in Edmonton and my family was in British Columbia. And it was really strange. We lost out and they got you out of the hotel within 24 hours.
They were whisking people out of there. Yeah.
They were taking you out. And
helicopter lifts outside.
Yeah. Oh yeah. Guys are like, okay, we lost. And then the guys are like, we got to leave at 7 a.m. now. They're kicking us out. And I know they were talking to me about a flight, and I felt sort of squirmish about a flight going into. I really did. So I said, just rent me a car. I'll drive to British Columbia. So it was actually a great drive.
It's beautiful, I bet.
I was going through
in the spring, like you're fine or whatever.
Yeah, and so anyways, it was refreshing because I got to see that the world was a little bigger than just a hotel.
Yeah.
And it was that part was refreshing, and it allowed me slowly to get into regular society, if you will.
It's funny, Barry, you talk about how hard it is to A, make the playoffs, B, win. And the example I always use is that Capitals team. Like I was in Columbus when it went into overtime. Somebody hit a post. I think Panarin or somebody hit a post. Where we're talking an inch, and it's a completely different story. Yeah. And then from there, it's history. That now all we remember is the Capitals won and Ovi got his and whatever. We're drinking out of t-shirts. Yeah, but like 1 inch, we're talking. It's crazy.
It is. I got a great story for you. When we lost twice in overtime to Columbus, and we went to Game 3 and we won, I think, in double overtime.
Yeah, double overtime.
Double overtime, and we won that game. I walked into our coach's room, and I said, "You know what, guys? We're going to win Stanley Cup now.
Get out of here."
And
is that true?
It is a true story. And I can tell you, my coaches looked at me like I was an alien. And they said, settle down, big boy. We won one game. I go back to, to a couple of years previous. So during the All-Star break, I ended up taking my family out to the Bahamas. And I think it was Atlantis. And
I ran into great place.
Yeah. And I ran into Jacques Lemaire. So I had won. We had with Washington. They had a good team, and we were trying to get through the mental hump, if you will. We had lost to Pittsburgh 2 years in a row. Us and Pittsburgh were sort of, vying for the President's Trophy, and then vying for the, to go on. And they beat us twice and went on to win 2 cups. And that was hard. It was hard mentally because you felt you're right there, and we just couldn't get by him. I'm looking for the key, and so I'm talking to during the World Cup. This on the staff. I was asked Mike Babcock and Claude Julien and Joel Quenneville was on staff. We'd sit there after and having a glass of wine and talking after or between games and I said, what was the key to, winning a cup? Because, and it was story after story of, we should have lost in the first round. We hit the post and, we came back and we won the game, and then we rolled from there. You think about, I think LA had Chicago on the ropes one year. It was story after story about, we should have lost. I talked to Terry Crisp, who's become a good friend, obviously, with the Predators over years. And he says, we should have lost to Vancouver in the first round the year they won the cup. He says Rick Lance hit the post, I think it was, and they would have lost, and we'd never have that story. So I get to the Bahamas, and I run into Jacques Lemaire of all places. And I said, Jacques, if you're here, I wouldn't mind sitting down with you for a coffee. So we arranged to have coffee. We sit down, and I'm talking to Jacques. He said, I've got a good team. I think we can win the cup, but it just is there. I'm looking for that edge. And I said, you won some cups. What was the one thing that if you could think about all the cups you've won, and as a coach, is there something that really allowed you to win? And he looked at me and he thought for a second, and he says, we didn't have to play the Islanders. We could never beat the Islanders. And I was like, I was waiting for this nugget, and but what he was telling me, once you win it, is that you need a little bit of luck. And every story was we were this close to being out.
Yep.
And we were able to turn that into something positive, and then we just build off of it. He said, we had the route where the Islanders were in their head.
Yep.
They didn't have to play the Islanders, so they always felt like they could always win. And he was saying, you've got it. There's going to be, adversity and things. It's how you respond, and you got to stay in the moment. And that was the one thing that everybody says, you have to stay on the moment. No matter what happens, you just got to get up. And one of the things I talked about the year we won the cup is, I had a friend who climbed Everest. He had two attempts at climbing Everest, and the thing that he said I brought him in, and he said it to our group, and we used it as a little bit of theme. He was asked by reporters, "Do you have what it takes to climb Everest?" And he says, "That's why I'm going back." And we use that theme that year. That's why we were going to find out if we had it.
Yeah. And
we did. And when we hit the post and we won, or they hit the post and we won in double overtime, I knew. That was it. I absolutely knew we were going to win the cup, because
that's great.
It was one of those things that you just know, inside, and I felt it. And there was a real calm zen to the rest of the playoffs for me. It really was. I knew we were going to win the whole time. Even in the Tampa series, we knocked off almost every block that was that Washington ever. You lose 2 games at home, you never win a series. It was one thing after another. We go into Tampa and we win both game 1 and game 2. They would come back and win 3 straight. Then we have to win game 6 and 7. And I was calm through the whole thing. It was, I just knew. I knew. And we had such a great group.
Oh, yeah. How do you frame that concept for the players? The idea of luck playing such a role. You're like, all right, boys, like this is like we got our break. Everything's gravy from here on out. How do you communicate? How do you communicate that with them?
I think when you believe in something so strongly, people can see it.
Yeah, I bet you they felt it, Barry.
I think people can feel it. I mean, it's we've all been there, in sport or in life, that when someone's saying something, they're in, and they believe it, and they know it, and it's a lot easier when there's that conviction there. And then our players bought in. We had fun with it. I told them, there was a lot of things, a guy like Ovi, and Backstrom, they had a lot of disappointment, great players. And I think when I came to the realization and was able to convey to them the realization that no one's going to be defined, or you shouldn't be defined by, especially great players like Ovi and Backy, by a piece of steel, silver. You shouldn't, because life is, I said, everybody wants to be Alex Ovechkin. You grow up, how many kids, tie you got the yellow lace around, and they tuck their jersey in, and they're using his stick and his mannerisms. And I says, the impact you've had, you're not going to be defined in your career. You're going to be defined as a Hall of Fame player, one of the greatest goal scorers of all time, and someone who saved hockey. Him and Sid saved hockey. So conveying to them that it was about the journey, not necessarily the medal. It was the journey, and getting them to understand that the journey is going to be really hard, but also when it's all said and done, you have a ring and you've got pictures and all that. But I can guarantee you, everybody can tell you about all the funny things and all the hard things on that journey. And the end is the prize. You've got to say that to the world that, hey, we've done it. But inside anybody who's ever won, it's the journey and the tight-knit group that you had, and that is that's what uplifts you. Uplifts your spirit a little bit. Like I have a Stanley Cup ring. It's been on my finger twice. Once when the Caps gave it to me, and twice when I showed it to my family, and that's that's it. And I would say a lot of players, same thing. They have it on for. I always laugh. The people who have really won it, been in the fight, day in and day out, the 20 players, the trainers, coaches, all that, you never see them wearing a ring. But you see all the other people on the outside.
Yeah, you see the guy that barely got one's got. I'll be honest. If I ever got one, it wouldn't leave my hand.
Yeah, and I always chuckle about that.
That's funny.
The people that have really earned it and have done all the heavy lifting. They never wear the ring.
They never wear it
because the ring is really the journey. It's that it's here, and the other people who are a little more on the outside but were a part of it, they always wear it because they're proud, and they should.
Yeah.
But it's that's what you see all the time.
That's great. That's awesome. Well, last thing from me, Barry, you mentioned Ovi. How different is it watching him now, maybe as a fan or as an observer versus being in the battle with him, right? Where you're trying to get him to do things or whatever it is. Do you have a different appreciation when you're just like, hey, I'm just going to watch him fire up goals, or what is it like watching him now from your perspective?
I just think I'm very fortunate to have been a part of greatness.
Yeah.
I took a lot of flack when I said he was the greatest goal scorer of all time. When I first said that, when I got there,
I think you've been proven.
Yeah. And I took a lot of flack from, north of the border. I also said I think he's probably the most physical superstar that I've seen in a long time. since, even more physical than, I think I said, like Mark Messier, and took a lot of flack for that, but he's exceptional. I don't know if you'll see a guy like him again because of the durability factor. He's been someone who's had impact on the game. I mean, the game through the lockout, him and Sid really carried the game for a long time. It was he was always the evil empire, if you will. He was the bad guy and Sid was the good guy. Now I think when you look at it, it's come full circle, and Ovi is, it's like, Butch Cassidy and the Sundance Kid. I mean, they're both, they're there, and they've
jump off the cliff together.
Yeah, and I think you see that he's really he's a special player that we're getting to see now, both him and Sid.
I mean, you called him one of the great goal scorers of all time when you coach him, but like, there's a difference between that and now we're seeing him. He's at the top of a lot. He's moving towards the top of a lot of lists, as we all know, right? He's hitting big round numbers. Like, what was your thought when you're like, okay, when you were coaching him, were you ever like, I think there's a chance this guy could finish first or second all time in goals, aside from just being like, as skilled as he was and as productive as he was, like, but to be at the top of the list.
Yeah, when I was there, and this is, we're talking, 5-6 years ago now, and that seemed like it was a long way away, but it wasn't impossible because it was durability. He would be knocking on the door right now if it wasn't for lockouts. And, I don't think Gretz ever had a lockout season when he played. You'd have to look. I don't know.
Yeah, the one in '95, but that was only those 30 games. It wasn't.
Yeah, it wasn't a real long one. Ovi's missed 2 sort of full seasons, and then he got shortened by the 58 game schedule or whatever, and the 48 one year. So, he'd be knocking on the door right now. But he'll play durability wise. The release is there. And one thing I know about Ovi, when he gets focused on something, he's pretty hard to stop. He really is. And that's the great ones are when they get something in their mind that they're going to get accomplished. They usually do. So I'm betting on Ovi.
Yeah,
not a bad bet.
Yeah, not a bad bet. Yeah, real dangerous, eh?
Well, I mean,
smart money is still money. I guess it's fine.
Yeah, that's true.
Well, Barry,
well, hold on.
I'm trying to wrap it up.
We got to ask one more. Are you feeling charged up? Do you feel like you're where you need to be after the break to maybe get back at it next year if the situation's right?
Yeah, absolutely. Yeah. I've talked to a few teams, a couple teams, even during the winter here, have reached out to me, and I'm sure. And I said, no, I'm not going back. So I'm going to go back. I'm refreshed, and I got, as I said, I'm going over to Europe with my wife and some friends. And when I get back, I'll be charged up. I felt like middle of December, and we're almost looking at getting close to February here. So I feel like I've accomplished what I needed to accomplish, and I've been staying on top of the league and staying refreshed. So either at in the spring or next year, we'll get back at it. Hopefully, if they still want me.
I think they probably will.
I think you'll be all right there.
About that.
Well, Barry, thanks for doing this. Good to see you. Enjoy Europe. Where are you going?
Israel.
Oh, wow.
All right.
Wow. Well, enjoy that. That's an incredible trip. And I'm sure we'll see you back at the rink before too long.
Hopefully, guys. Never know. You never know in this business. It's a great. I watch Bruce, and I can say this with all due respect to everybody. What Bruce was going through, it's such a great game. The people in the game are great. Mm-hmm. They really are, and the fans are. You saw how the fans.
Yeah, that was awesome.
Sent them off. I guess. He's right. This game is the best game and the worst game in the world. At times, it's business, and the season has been fantastic. There's some great teams, and it's been enjoyable to watch. And I think the playoffs are going to be spectacular. spectacular this year. I really do, because I mean, people don't realize the best team in the worst team in the National Hockey League, no matter who that is going to win 1 out of 3 games. And they usually beat a good team, which every drives fan base is crazy. But you have to be on, because there's, winning a President's Trophy and finishing 8th in the conference is winning 1 more game a month. That's about it.
Wow. Is that it? I've never thought of it in those terms.
I've never done that math. I think it checks out.
President's Trophy is usually, 112, 116. This Boston may blow that out of the water, but
they're ridiculous.
And the team making the playoffs is usually 95. So it's about 1 game a month. That's about it. And it's crazy, because you get off to a great start. You could have the President's Trophy, but you could have a team that's finishing 8th who's got off to a slow start, but they're not
coming.
They're coming. So there's not much difference between that. And think about Colorado. If they finish 8th.
Yeah, you want that team in the first round?
Thanks.
Well, that team I just watched the other day. They're going to be just fine. I don't think they're going to finish 8th, but could you imagine that? There's your prize for finishing first.
It feels like they're coming for sure.
Yeah, I watched them the other day. They're just starting to pick their feet up now. They're going.
Yep. Is there any team other than the Bruins that you've watched this year and just been like, this is?
Yeah, I would be curious. Like, who's been most impressive?
Who's your most impressive?
Who's been really impressive to me, and I like the Kraken. You think about the Kraken. They drafted a lot of people with good character. They could skate. Their defense was really strong. I know Philip Grubauer had an off year. There's a different pressure when you sign that big contract and all that. And they just didn't have enough offense. So, but all of a sudden you get Veneers and you add Burakovsky and Bergstrom and missing some guys. And they've added those guys. They've added like 5. Oh, they didn't have Tanev last year. They've added
Tanev's back.
They've added basically 2 lines to their team. Offensive guys, and Hack has got them playing, solid on both sides of the puck, and they can hurt you. There's not one guy that hurts you; they all hurt you. They sort of chip away at you. So they've been very impressive. I think Toronto's good. No one gives Toronto any credit for how good defensively they've been. I think people are starting to recognize it, but I saw it last year. They were really pretty good defensively. In the playoffs, what you see is teams that are going to get in that have to go on, they're playing at that 100% level, if you will, or close to it all year to get in. When the playoffs come, they don't have that extra level, and then there's teams that, they'll have that extra level that have sort of been really quiet about their year, and they're going to have a good playoff. So,
what they feel like to me, Barry, like exactly what you were talking about with your Washington. I feel like they need that first round. The puck goes in off someone's like leg, and they get they get a lucky win or whatever it takes, right? And then something snaps, and then the Leafs just go on this huge run. Like I feel like we're in that moment of time with Toronto.
Yeah, I think with Toronto, the thing that I saw with them last year, that I know that they're trending to having success and getting through the first round, is you saw the commitment level in the playoffs.
Yeah.
There was their stars were blocking shots. They're, they had to, they got their noses dirty a little more often. They made the simple play when they had to. They didn't try to force things. And, you look back to the year we were in the bubble. And if you remember, I think Tampa Bay lost out the year before in an early round, and you can see when players make the adjustments. I think Kucherov had and this is how a player grows, and that's where I'm trying to go with this. Is Kuch wouldn't dump the puck in ever. I mean, he would try to make that play. The next year, when we played them in the bubble and they won the cup, a guy like Kuch led the whole sort of the playoffs in getting pucks deep, if you will, either through entry with possession or by putting it in, which is the adjustment in his game. And that tells me when teams are learning to win is they are learning to adjust. They're learning what's valuable. They're not just going, oh, I've done this all my life, I'm going to continue to do it. They go, you know what? This is a different animal, so I've got to treat it differently. And good players do that. And they seem to, where winning trumps stats, if you will, or their game, they put the team first. And a guy like Cooch, I saw that, and I was like, when we were playing them, I'm like, this is going to be a tough out. They were tough out anyways. They were a tough out anyways. But I was like, he's getting it. There's a difference. There's a difference in his game, and you see that. I thought I saw that last year with the Leafs. I mean, you see, I like Marner's game, and Marner's playing a 200-foot game. I mean, he's first on the forecheck, first on the back check. I mean, your stars are doing it. You have a chance to have success. So
yeah.
There's a lot of good players in this league right now. The skill is stupid.
The Leafs fan base is going to be thrilled to see this. Barry Trotz is signing off on Toronto's defensive forward work. Let's go.
Well, I'm signing off is that they're learning to win.
Yeah,
I'm signing off on the Leafs because there's a team like Boston there and team like Tampa there. So
Tampa also still.
But I'm saying great competition. Great teams like Tampa who have learned to win, and Boston who's had a winning tradition. Toronto's learning from that. It's. I know if you're a Toronto fan, it's death by 1,000 cuts sometimes over the years, but you'll break through. It'll break through. It'll happen. I don't know if it'll happen this year, but it'll happen. It just will because. Players are proud and they learn to adjust. Good players, the great players do, and I know they have some really good players, and you got good leadership, and that's why I say the playoffs will be fantastic this year.
It's going to be fun. Yeah.
Yep, they will.
All right, Barry.
All right.
Well, thanks for doing this again. Good to see you.
All right.
And we'll catch up later when you get back, hopefully.
Hopefully, never know.
Like I said, I think like you can't say it, but we can. Yeah, you'll be back.
All right, you guys take care.
Thanks for the time.
Anytime, guys.